All right, so let's quickly recap those second round playoff series, and we'll start with your Toronto Maple Leafs, who really dug themselves a hole going down 3-0 against the Florida Panthers. They get a win to get back in it in Florida, and then they lose in overtime, which was just a heartbreaker to watch on Friday night on home ice, and they lose the series in 5 games. Florida moves on again. They continue this incredible run that they're on. I know that all three of us, we picked the Leafs, obviously, in this series, but Florida continues on, and it's another early offseason for the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah, so I just want to start by saying that, I don't think we should spend too much time recapping these previous series, especially this one, because I plan to do an episode in the future, maybe similar to last year when I did it with John Kiriakou, our buddy, and we just talked about the ideal offseason for the Maple Leafs. So I'm hoping to do that maybe later on in the summer once we get some clarity on what's happening with the management situation in Toronto.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, because we would prefer to talk about the player situation, the situation on the ice as opposed to off the ice. And I think that would be a good episode to do, and then we could break down, where it all went wrong for the Leafs in this series. But, just briefly, I'll reiterate what Sheldon Keefe said in his end-of-year presser, that, this series was lost in the first 3 games, really. You can't go down 3-0, no matter who you're playing, whether it's an 8 seed or a number 1 seed. You can't go down 3-0 to a team in the NHL and expect to win, because it's only been done 4 times in the past. And it's extremely hard to do. So even when the Leafs won Game 4, sure, it was a tightly played game, and the series is completely different if they win that Game 4, if it's already, if it's 2-1 instead of 3-0. If they got one of those first 2 games in the win column where, they frankly dominated the expected goals. Anyways, I believe after 2 games, the expected goals was something like 10-5 for the Maple Leafs. So if they got one of those first 2 games and then they win Game 4, this series is completely different, and it's likely going the distance. But it was just too much of a mountain to climb for the Maple Leafs going down 3-0. So Sheldon Keefe was entirely correct when he said that the series was lost in the first 3 games. So again, don't have a ton to say about it. I'm sure I'll break it down in the summer, but that's what I've got right now.
Yeah, definitely. And looking forward to that when you and John kind of dissect the Maple Leafs and do that episode in the summertime for sure. So Florida moves on, and the Carolina Hurricanes move on as well. So those 2 teams will play each other in the Eastern Conference Finals. Carolina takes out the New Jersey Devils in 5 games. And, I know all 3 of us went with the Devils. That's Casey's team. Obviously, he's not here for this, but what a season for the Devils. I mean, you got to be walking away from this being what an awesome year. We were better than expected, took a real step forward, but we just lost to a team with so much depth. They're so well coached, and Carolina was definitely the better team in this series, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't think it came down to any one thing for the Devils. Maybe Casey could, maybe he would say otherwise. But it's just a team that was, that's been there, done that, way more experienced, going against a team who, was their first time there. They don't have a ton of experience outside of a couple guys, like Andre Palat is one of them. But, even, despite the fact that these teams were relatively closely matched all season long in terms of points anyways, maybe we should have seen this coming a little bit more when we were making our predictions, because Florida they have that next man up mentality. And that was one of the points that I made when we were talking about that series, the fact that they were missing some key guys to injury, but it really didn't matter at the end of the day. And maybe we should have seen that coming, because they're so, well coached by Rod Brindamore. So Carolina's a team, like, I kind of like how they play it. They're able to score a bunch on you because they have the great depth throughout their lineup. But if they want to, and this is how they like to play, and I think they're most successful doing it this way, is just kind of shutting it down, like just kind of turtling and really stymieing the opposition defensively, and then relying on some pretty good goaltending with whoever's in the net, whether it be Freddie Anderson, Antti Ranta, or Pyotr Kochetkov. So I like that team, and I like their odds in the conference finals, to be honest.
And, this is kind of the first time that former Maple Leaf Freddie Anderson is in the midst of a long playoff run. And for Carolina, I think that, they have their guy in net. Finally, Anderson has broken through, and that's great. But to me, it's the blue line as well. I think they have an elite blue line, and I think the X factor for them and the real difference maker this time around has been Brent Burns, in my opinion. He had an incredible regular season, and that's carried over into the playoffs. And I think that blue line was just too much for the Devils to handle in the end. But what an exciting year for a young hockey team, and I think they're going to be in the playoffs year after year moving forward with that group that they have. So, yeah, Definitely. Like I said, Florida, Carolina in the Eastern Conference Finals. We'll get to our predictions for that in a moment.